1995 Nissan President. Welcome to the height of Nissan. This is the President. From the perspective of Americans, these Japanese domestic market hyper-luxury cars are alien. The closest car to a president in the Western world would be a BMW 7 Series. But a 7 Series says, "Look at me," while a president says, "Avert your eyes." I'm an executive. Avert your eyes. I can fire your extended family, and they don't even work for me. Don't even look through the windshield. I'm not there. My driver is driving. I'm in the back with reclining back seats. And I'm en français. Sucé. Put the front passenger seat forward from the rear passenger seat and watch me no longer get longer because my face is a California raisin that can't sing. What time is it? Time to get a pneumatic tumescence implant and activate it during each stuffy, smoke-filled meeting. Don't touch the center console-mounted window switches, because I pay you to drive and breathe my secondhand smoke and farts, which I will blame on you. Keep those vents closed. Want some advice? Play water balloon toss with my colostomy bag. Here's some information. Drive on the shoulder. Move the rear view mirror away and pay no attention to the noises I will now make.
Place the mask over your nose and mouth and put the elastic band over your head. Pull the straps to tighten and breathe normally.
Nissan President. Sponsored by civilians who desperately want to apply the term, "We need more boots on the ground," to their real estate business. A Nissan President doesn't care about you. It knows your only value is as a chauffeur. In that way, it's not that different from driving a minivan packed with the consequences of a broken condom. But what makes the Nissan President special is that it was Nissan essentially finding its footing as an automaker. This was Nissan's first full-sized car. I'm not talking about this generation, I'm talking about the President from Jump. And one of the first cars that Nissan produced and marketed entirely on their own without placing it under the banner of Datsun or Prince. It was an ambitious car for a company that had the stones to stand up to established names. The biggest reason for the President's creation was to compete with the Toyota Crown, with both cars looking to become the official car of the imperial family. Nissan was hoping that this would be the car that would get them into whatever Japan's White House equivalent is. Of course, it didn't. But they still made a car that, over the course of 4 generations, came to represent the apex of what Nissan could become. Long before Nissan Altimas and their vape-smoking Texas Roadhouse waiters who drive in cursive on Swiss cheese roads, the Nissan President was offering the kind of luxury passenger experience you could only get from the family car at 4 years old. Gently falling asleep as you envision every turn the car is making. Your empty container of chalky milk falls to the floor, and you let it, because you don't care about keeping the car clean, and no one expects you to either. Nissan President. I buy low, sell high, and act mid. The Nissan President lasted from 1965 to 2010. And this is the 3rd generation model that hit the streets in 1990, riding on a chassis that would be shortened and then sent to the United States for the Infiniti Q45. What had been a luxury Japanese sedan began to take a more European aesthetic, beginning to look more like a Jaguar than as a counter-programmed Toyota Century. But by 1995, the 3rd gen had made substantial gains past previous generations. It was the first car with an SRS airbag for the rear seat on the left-hand passenger side. It also delivered a new 4.5-liter VH 45DE V8, making 266 horsepower at 5,600 RPM and 291 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM. This is significant because the VH 45DE was a low-cost engine with motorsports potential, getting swapped into cars for drag racing and drift track sprints. This looks sluggish, but it has moments of surprising capability for what is essentially a glorified limousine. And originally, these things came with adaptive suspension, so you could firm up the ride as necessary so the boss doesn't spill his champagne. The President drives more like a modern car than a Toyota Century. This 4.5-liter V8 revs to just under 7,000 RPM, and when you go wide open throttle, the transmission doesn't shift away until you let off.
First gear. I think that was first gear. Staying in first. When is it shifting? Come on, shift. You're not shifting, are you? It's staying in, it's staying in, it's staying in it. Any day now, there it shifts. I like that. Until you pull off, it's not going to shift through that. Because fuck my gas mileage, we're moving. Boss needs to get somewhere. And wee. I don't understand this. So here's our air cleaner, here's our intake, here's our throttle body, here's the throttle, right? But then what is this? It is another throttle. I'm guessing this is your cruise control. But then what is this? I mean, if this would be your cruise control cable, why does it need a second throttle cable? Why they could have just run this right there, but they didn't. They put it there. I like how it's a shrouded fan, but the fan's so big and the shroud's so tiny, it's like you're gonna get your fingers cut off anyway. Okay, that's your brakes right there, but there's no vacuum brake booster. It's almost like some variation of a GM Hydro Boost, but if I look around there, it seems to have, I'm sorry for the wind, but it seems to have an electric motor in there. Wait a minute, no. Over there. There's your vacuum brake booster. Okay. So then that is an anti-lock braking system, but it's nowhere near the master cylinder. Huh. Your job as the driver to make room for the people right here. So this is for the driver to move the passenger seat forward for the important person who sits right there. And that is also to, oh, look at that. Oh, that is so... Everything is made to please you in here. Every little switch is delicate, and one of this right there, that is to keep, oh yes, your mirror here, it's never going to flop around. It clicks and stays in place. And then to keep the sun away from you, it's right there. Do I need to put the key in to close this? I do need to put the key in to close the sunroof. The style of this car is a mix of British, like Jaguar, Rolls-Royce, and then American style, because that hood sits so far out in front of me, it's deceptive, especially for a 90s car, when sort of the cab forward design became a thing. Toyotas tend to either do their own thing or completely rip off other people. This is a mix of styles, and everything's familiar and everything's alien. This, sorry about that, is where the boss would sit. And there's a button right here that raises the front seat, raises it, and then keeps it going. It goes up there, and then there's another button up there that puts it all the way forward. It doesn't have what the Toyota Century had, which is the pass-through for your feet. So your feet would go up there. Here are your rear controls. your rear fan controls, rear heating controls. I can't read that, and I don't know what these do. But these buttons feel different than all the other buttons in the car. These feel more like remote control buttons. They could have continued with their in-stock parts bin stuff, but they chose not to. I wonder if this is where your car is supposed to go. Right here. Or maybe your pen. Here are my rear seat heaters. And here is my electric headrest. Here's my rear heating and air conditioning. I don't have to wait for the air to come from the front of the car. I get to have it right back here.
The Toyota Century, which was another JDM hyper luxury executive car, and honestly the best car I've ever driven and ridden in, is softer, slower, more boaty, and physically larger than the Nissan President. The Toyota Century was styled for people who don't like change. The Century looked the same throughout generations, prostrating itself before the fossilized sensibilities of its elderly target demographic. The Nissan President has more modern styling. Yeah, it's this blend of Jag in the front and kind of American Panther body in the rear. This hood ornament is Rolls-Royce-esque, but it's just the wings. When Kanem got this President, it had these cheap Japanese, like big ugly dubs on it. And it had in fact, it still has coilover suspension. The original air ride was swapped out at some point in its history in Japan for coilovers. And right now it's sitting at its maximum ride height. So in the meantime, he got some OEM Nissan wheels and put them on here for the time being. Nissan President. My golf club has its own golf club. Nissan President. I don't know why I'm doing the gravelly voice. Nissan President. I boost property values by just driving through your neighborhood. Nissan President. I have a yacht docked in California. A business incorporated in Delaware. A wife in New Hampshire. And a second family also in New Hampshire. Kanem got this for around $10,000. It really only needed a tune-up and oil change and some rewiring. It currently has 71,000 miles. And right now, this is his daily, while he's waiting on the air suspension and some different wheels. It seems like the kind of car that gives more than it takes, because it has build quality that is uncommon for Nissan as we know it today. It looks stately, refined, dignified, like someone who replaced their Coke addiction with alcohol snobbery. Because the best scotch is the kind I can hold carelessly by the rim of the glass, as I gloat about not having watched TV for 10 years. Nissan President. For the man who asks what you make, and then interrupts you to tell you what he makes. Nissan President. For earning your pretentiousness. But this is much more of a driver's car than the Toyota Century, as much as you can say a car for executives is a driver's car. But it breaks your heart in a good way, because it's a version of Nissan that we don't see anymore. The version that cares about details, that cares about being taken seriously, rather than as a synonym for bad drivers. It's a Nissan that almost thinks it's too good for you to touch. It's a dad defending his thermostat. It's a bouncer defending the dancers. It's a car that dismisses you because you're not the point. The passenger is the point. You're merely the vessel through which it is operated. It's a metaphor for the old work-life balance. We don't always get to enjoy the comforts of being a passenger because we're too busy driving. And it's not like we can just stop. Someone needs to. But everyone should experience the comforts and joy of life as a passenger, as we were when we were kids. I know not everybody thinks they deserve a day off, because life is demanding. The whole structure of life falls apart if you have the audacity to care about your own well-being. But you do deserve it, and I hope you know that. You deserve to breathe. By virtue of existing on this rolling ball of water and soil, you've earned it. This car congratulates you for earning life.
Sorry for cutting in front of that Cadillac.
It's alright. Jersey? No, they don't play that.
Yeah. Man, look at that. Holy. Alright, I gotta slow down.
That's nothing.
Exactly why?
Well, the turn's right here. Man, the brakes are good. Everything's great.
Let me see.
Doesn't sway. This is awesome.
That's what I'm thinking about, getting that Sovereign.
Man, if it feels this good with the old shocks and the new shocks, it's okay. There it is. There's some bumps going on.
Yeah.
So when we checked, we got brand new coilovers on, but I don't like it. It's all a bouncer for me. But the guy with the Sovereign, he got coilovers on his. And I'm starting to realize a lot of cars coming from Japan,
Yeah.
they taking the struts off of them and putting coilovers on them.
It almost feels like their culture of taking old luxury cars. No, wait, it's not the same, because here when you have old luxury cars, you go to bags immediately,
Yeah.
if you're dropping them. But there they're putting like racing stuff on them, and yeah, that doesn't.
It makes some sense.
I guess it's the equivalent of dropping a truck. It's just enough similar to our car culture, but just different enough that why are you trying to make an old boat handle like a sports car? I get it. You have people who do that with Crown Vics, but at that point you're almost racing them, and they're not really street cars.